Bri the Sky Guy reporting in once again, this time to learn about the moon's orbit around the Earth. So last time we discussed how we observe the moon here on Earth. Let's take an outsider's perspective, maybe an astronaut's perspective of what's going on with the moon and its orbit around the Earth. All right, so here we are using NASA's Eyes on the Solar System to explore the Earth-Moon system to really get a sense of what these big numbers mean as far as the scale model of the Earth and the moon. So the Earth, about 6,000 diameters across from one edge to the other. We have the moon, about a third of the size of that, about 2,000 miles across. And this large object that we see in the sky, it's not close to us. It's about 230,000 miles away from us on average, way out there. But what does it actually mean? We can get a good sense of that as we begin to zoom away from the Earth in the program here. And you really just get to see all the space that's out there in space. There's a good reason why we call it that. And you have to get way out there before you can even see the Earth and the moon together in the same picture. A lot of times when you might be studying these things or seeing stuff in textbooks or on the internet, you might see just things all out of whack. The moon might be too close to the Earth. The moon might be too big, but at the right distance, all sorts of things. It's hard to get these big, huge systems to fit on any kind of easy medium for us to really ingest. And we're going to do a little activity later on to really ingrain this relationship between the size of the Earth to the distance of the moon. It's really quite surprising when you kind of get your hands dirty with Play-Doh and kind of investigate what it means for this separation of 230,000 miles. Now, a couple other things we can look at with the Earth and Moon system. If I find the sun, let's kind of rotate around. We can line the Earth up with the sun, but look how crooked the moon looks. It's like it's orbiting at an angle. It totally does. The moon does not orbit perfectly around the equator. It's tilted really about 5 degrees. And this is why we don't have these solar eclipses and lunar eclipses every month, because sometimes the moon can be a little low, sometimes the moon can be a little high in the orbit, and everything has to line up just right for an eclipse to happen. All right, so let's take a look at exactly what that all means. I have everything lined up for the next solar eclipse, which will take place on April 8th, 2024. And here we see the moon actually right in almost the right place for an eclipse. And if I get everything lined up just right, you can see, again, this tilt to the orbit here. Sometimes the moon can be too low. Sometimes the moon can be too high. It has to be in just the right place. There's only 2 places in its orbit where these eclipses can occur. Not only that, it has to be at the right phase. Only during a new moon can we have a solar eclipse. One other little fine detail as well, if we get an overhead look, is that the moon's orbit is not perfectly circular. It's what's called an ellipse, meaning it's a little more oval shape. Though not much, but enough for it to matter. So sometimes the moon can be a little closer to the Earth, sometimes the moon can be a little farther away. Again, it has to be just the right place in its elliptical orbit to also create a solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse at that. If the moon is a little farther away from the Earth in its orbit, you can get something called an annular eclipse, where the moon will still get in between the Earth and the sun, but since the moon's farther away, it looks smaller and it doesn't block all the light from the sun, which is also pretty cool to witness. All right, so we line everything up once again. I'll speed up the clock here and we can take a look at how this transit event happens. So you see the Earth, Moon, Sun all line up perfectly, and we get that awesome, incredible solar eclipse event. All right, so let's wrap everything up by doing a quick, fun little activity that will kind of tie in this whole scale model distance with what it actually means for the moon to be orbiting so far away from us and how big it is. The first thing you got to do in this activity is get the supplies, which will be Play-Doh, string, and scissors. So those are the 3 supplies you will need for this activity. It's a pretty simple, straightforward one. For the most part, you'll probably be surprised at the end result, because what I'll have you do first is create your own model, what you think the Earth, Moon look like, and then separate them apart for what you think the distance will be. And then I have the steps for you in a document in a link below the video that will take you through the steps to create the scale model out of Play-Doh. So you guys have some fun and enjoy.